Welcome to WVU Football, going deep. Back when West Virginia hired Drew Fabianich, it seemed like a good hire. I mean, got a guy with lots of NFL experience. But it didn't seem like a particularly big deal because one guy was leaving in office spot, another guy was replacing him, and they were changing the title. Doesn't hardly seem like news. Well, it could be that I was a little bit wrong. And it could be that I was, one whole heck of a lot wrong. And I'd say it was the second. I hadn't watched the interview the first time Drew Fabianich was on Three Guys Before the Game back, I think after the fifth game of the season. And didn't, what the heck? Do I want to watch an interview with a front office kind of guy? I did catch the one more recently, and then the one when he was on the In the Gun podcast. And well, I found out what Drew Fabianich does. And I also got a sense of how well he does it. Turns out that Fabianich analyzes players. Doesn't sound like a big deal yet. Coaches analyze players. They're supposed to. And I think our coaches are pretty good at it. But coaches coach, recruit, do a whole long list of other things, and analyze players. Well, the more things you do, the less likely you are to do all of them as well as you need to. Especially with the way the portal is increasing the number of players you have to analyze, and sometimes how quickly you have to analyze. And Fabianich's crew, that's it. They analyze players. They analyze players on the team. They analyze players in high school. Analyze players in the portal, and expectations for the portal. And during the season, they analyze players on the other team. They find the weaknesses and mismatches. And they pass this information on to the coaches. And so it turns out that there's only a handful of schools that have somebody who specializes in player analysis. I hadn't thought of it, and you consider Fabianich's experience as coach and scout in the NFL, 30-some years total, and the other things that he's done, as far as people with his breadth of NFL background, he's it. There is nobody else in his position in college football with his type and combination of experience. And that means, he has spent most of his life figuring out who can or can't make it to the NFL or how they need to do it. Now, imagine that when you're talking to players. Recruiting. Hey, we have a guy who knows what it takes to get to the show. And he'll tell you what you need to do to get to the show if you come and play for us. I think that, has an effect. And he, Fabianich, he has, first thing was analyzing players on the team. He came in kind of late last year and didn't have time really to, pick who they were trying to recruit for 2024. He may have been involved in some of the decommits, or coaches may have already kind of had that in mind, but I wouldn't be surprised if he pointed out that some of their flaws were not going to be ones we could deal with. That now, if you listen to Fabianich, a lot of the things he says sound like Coach Brown, and he says good things about Coach Brown and the other coaches. And we've already had people, saying, well, he's just, trying to protect his job. Of course he's going to say good things about the coach. I don't think Fabianich needs this job. 30-some years in the NFL, his wife works as well. I have a feeling he could retire right now and live comfortably. So I don't see the financial incentive. And he worked with Bill Parcells and Jerry Jones. So I do not think Neil Brown is going to intimidate Fabianich. And I don't think he would try. It's not Brown's style. So when Fabianich talks, I have a feeling that we are hearing what he believes. He's not blowing smoke, folks. Now, some of it, he will tell you negative things about West Virginia players. Because there are negative things. So there is no perfect player. You can find weaknesses on any player. But now, in the interviews, they asked him particularly, they said surprises for next year. He turned it into guys with, high expectations. And I do, go watch these interviews. I'm going to hit some highlights and some thoughts, but watch the whole interview. It's, there are some boring spots, but that's okay. It's some well worth watching stuff. High expectations for Aubrey Burks, and expectation that he's going to move around a lot more. They say he's going to be used as a chess piece. And I think that could make the defense very interesting. So Sean Martin is going to be better. Partly from working on some key strength areas. Also, I did not realize Martin had been so consistently injured that he was very limited in practice pretty much the entire year. One of the things Fabianich said was that Martin will be able to practice an additional day. And it's like, that's a big deal. I thought he was practicing. But we could see the Sean Martin we have been hoping to see. And now we get some insight into why maybe we haven't seen him. Liked the way Wilson and Mulba came on late in the season. And of course they were both in their first year with the program, so you hope to see that jump. Ty French. French could have gone into the draft this year. Would have been a reasonable thing to do, but there are areas to improve. And French was being used as a Mike linebacker, and it's not what he's built for. Edge rusher is his better position. And yet he was being played out of position and still, getting this recognition. So we add some weight, we put him in position, good things should happen. Bad things for the opponents. Other guys coming in, he mentioned, T.J. Jackson again on defense, likes his explosion. He said he's going to push the guys who are already there on the defensive line, and he's going to put pressure on offenses. So I think we've done that. I hate losing Durajaye, but we're going to be covered for the year. Crandall and Garnes, both good. And again, I don't think Fabianich ever blows smoke. He says what he thinks, and he has a history of being right. They still have to do it. But according to Fabianich, they've got the ability to do it at this level. Let's not hear all about how they come from a lower level, blah, blah, blah. We're getting some good guys. Carico, of course, not a lot of tape, but says he's willing, smart, and tough. Seem to be good attributes to be working with. Bray, and again, this is kind of the uncertainty because, we've had these receivers where we get expectations that don't quite work out. Of course, we did not have Fabianich involved. One of the things he said about Bray is that he's still raw. And he's been, Bray's been around long enough you wouldn't expect that. But if he is still raw, that means he's still got upside to develop. He has not reached his ceiling. I like that. That's a good thing if he's done what he has so far and still has growth. Also, and here's a big key for the wide receiver room, Bray is, he's got this high-level work ethic. And we've got a young wide receiver room, talented as all get out, but young. Before I forget, please subscribe if you haven't done so. Make comments. Click that thumbs up button. Please don't click that thumbs down button. If you don't like it, just leave. And tell your friends. All of those things feed the algorithm, and that feeds the cats. And if you want to help with that sort of kind of thing, there is a link on the homepage for the channel and possibly one in the comment section or description of this video. Now, back to this video. And even, guys like Clement, they like to work, they believe in working, but they don't necessarily have that example in the room. Yeah, you can say, okay, well, they got Zach Frazier, but hey, he's not going to be working with the wide receivers. So we had Wilson and Bishop, who came in as leaders in the defensive backs, and that made a big difference. Yeah, we had problems back there, but and it still made a big difference. So you add that to this young room full of talent, and oh man, even as I talk, my hopes and expectations are going up. Because, he mentioned with Ray, Ray was too weak last year. And he said, and Ray has said it. It was not hard for, the cornerbacks to knock him off his route. So he knows he has to add strength. He's adding strength. Now, got Bray in this room to keep pushing him. So imagine Ray really taking that big step. Not a sophomore slump, but a sophomore jump. I like it. Now Gallagher, we've got much the same thing. He doesn't know how to be a receiver, but he's learning. Now he says athletically, Gallagher is there. He's got the stuff. So a lot of it is learning. Donaldson, I'm not covering every player that he talked about in these interviews, but Donaldson, one of the main things, Donaldson can be whatever he wants to be, but he has to learn to run like a big guy. At the same time, he said, the torn labrum had him running cautiously pretty much all year. With that injury, you're pretty much constantly wondering if your shoulder is going to separate at any moment. Imagine having that on your mind and trying to hit the line. I did not know that. Of course, you don't necessarily want your opponents to know that. But now we have a better idea of why Donaldson had some issues along with his ongoing ankle problems. We could, again, see the Donaldson we were expecting. The offensive line. Now Bosley coming in, he said Bosley still needs to develop. Joseph will take care of that. No worries there in terms of abilities. And of course, with Fabianich, in the room, I don't think we're going to bring in guys who have any ability issues. We're going to catch that. But with the guys in the offensive line room, 6 or 7 who could develop into NFL players. That's half the room could develop into NFL players. He said when the scouts come by and they look at the offensive line, they like that room. They like the look. Now, let's go back to that friggin' Athlon quote about how this looks like a MAC team. Now, guess what? Fabianich and the NFL scouts don't feel that way. They like the look. They like the type. So, I think things are in good shape. Real quick, on some of the needs to improve, Cole Taylor needs to improve his blocking. We knew that. Needs to improve getting in and out of his routes. Did not know that. So even on his strength, he needs to improve. Milam, his core and lowest strength has to improve. And his posture. White has to improve pass protection. Cutter and Lathan both have to improve flexibility and coverage. So one we maybe didn't know, another we pretty well did. Green. Now we'd heard about Green needing to. He has to improve short and intermediate passes. We have known that for a few years. That's been known since he was a sophomore in high school. Has to learn not to throw a fastball every time. That we've known. Now Green and the coaches had already talked about the problems with sometimes lowering his shoulder and keeping his footwork in line with read progressions. We thought, and of course, based on the statistics, Green was brilliant on the deep throws. Fabianich would differ. Not good enough. He throws too flat on too many of the deep balls. It's a similar problem to some of the short and intermediate passes. But the touch on the deep balls, he says, isn't good enough yet. Now imagine Garrett Green with better touch on the deep ball and the short intermediate passes. I said part of it is just he has to remember, put the touch on there. He can do it. He just doesn't remember to do it. But he also said stride length varies too much. He's not, which is, again, that's footwork, and, man, we heard that from Reagan last year. Eyes and feet, eyes and feet, eyes and feet. So we have these small things that Garrett Green needs to do, which will improve where he had problems and improve where he was already one of the best in the country. I like that thought of that. Now, I want to talk a little bit Nico Marchiol, because he likes having a guy who has stayed, because the portal makes it so easy to leave. But guys like Marchiol who are willing to stay, willing to work, willing to go through the time, the trouble, face the adversity. But he said, when Green is done, it's Marchiol's team. And he said, Marchiol is going to be good. What we've been expecting to happen is there. So we got Marchiol covered. What he wants is somebody behind Marchiol who has already stayed and been around a while. But of course, you have to, that takes time. Boyle may be that guy. You know, he hasn't left yet. And hopefully Wilkins will become that guy behind Boyle. Because you're not going to have the same kind of stability as in the past, but you need stability. You need to keep a certain number of guys, and again, certain type of guys, to maintain the chemistry and culture. And Fabianich believes in chemistry and culture as much as Neil Brown does. Which also means, I think, the chemistry and culture between Fabianich and Brown is good. Okay, more things I wanted to cover. I'm not going to do it because I've already talked too long. I don't know how many of you have already gone to watch television. Thanks to those who have stayed. And now that you have stayed, if you haven't done so, please subscribe. Click the thumbs up button. Make comments. Share. Tell your friends. All of those things help. I will be doing more videos. That's either a promise, a threat, or both, depending on your perspective. And I'll see you guys later.